In a previous video, I tackled doing the milling machine, so in this video I'd like to do a bit of work on the mill table. So this is the table that the milling machine is bolted to, and as you can probably tell, it's a homemade job. I made it by welding together some box section steel, and you know what, for a mill this size, it does a pretty good job. It definitely does a better job than those mill cabinet stands that you can buy. It could stand to be a bit heavier, but it definitely gets the job done. Now, the original plan was to add some drawers for some storage, but I never got around to adding those at the time, or at least until now, and that should hopefully free up some extra space in the workshop. The drawers will mainly be made of pine, and I also bought some box section steel to support the runners. And I'll start by cutting up the steel for the runner support. Now this stuff is galvanized, so I will have to remove some of that zinc coating before welding it. And that is the basic frame done. That bottom area will become some cabinets, and the top half will be drawers. I can now do a proper weld to weld everything in place. With it now welded, I can now check to see if everything is strong enough. With that done, we can now move on to making the drawers. Now obviously this isn't a woodworking channel, nor am I a particularly good woodworker. I do enjoy doing it, and I have done for many years, and it's probably the reason why I love to make stuff. But if you're looking for a tutorial on woodworking, I'd check out a proper woodworking channel. However, I'm pretty sure that with only a handsaw and some screws, I can do a pretty reasonable job. Now, I'm not using a hacksaw for this just because I have a hacksaw. I would have used a tenon saw for this, but unfortunately the tenon saw that I do have, which is probably 100 years old, has a bend in the blade. So I'll have to get that fixed before I can use it. With the wood now cut, I can now start to assemble it. And I'm going to keep all the joints as simple as possible, so everything is going to be done with a simple butt joint. And to help assemble it, I've also made this spacer, which will offset the wood to almost the same thickness as the runners. And for anyone who is wondering, I'm going to be using these 8 gauge decking screws. Not my first choice, and I'm sure there are better ones out there, but it was the most suitable style that came with a Robertson or a square drive head, which is a hill that I'm willing to die on because I always try to use these screws when I can. And as you can see, the runner is just shy of flush on that outer edge. And after a bit more gluing and drilling, the drawer frames are now done. I have some thick plywood for the bottom, which I'll cut to size. And with the drawers now done, I can now put the runners in and then screw in the drawers. With that now done, I can now bolt some plywood to the outside in order to enclose it. And with that now done, I can start to prime and then paint it. And after a few coats of paint, it ended up looking like this. It probably won't win any awards for craftsmanship, but I'm really happy with how it turned out, and it works better than I thought it would. I did add the cabinet doors without filming it, but it's just 2 pieces of plywood attached to the frame by some hinges. So I thought the best thing I could do is give you a quick tour of it, although it still is a bit of a work in progress in terms of getting the storage layout to a point that I'm really happy with it. The bottom is mostly as it was before. It's where I'm storing the coolant and whey oil bottles, as well as the spare parts for the Sherline lathe. I did move the flood coolant reservoir down to the bottom to free up a bit more space, and it's doing just fine where it is. Now in the bottom cabinet area, I'm currently storing some of the more bulky pieces of equipment that I own. I have the dividing head and the footstock stored here, as well as the Sherline spindle, the grinding attachment, and the die filer. I'll be using the top left drawer to store my granite surface plate, which I'm pretty happy about since I've been trying to find a permanent storage place for it since I bought it, and it is a pretty bulky item. I'll also have to find a protective cover for it sometime in the future. I also have my whetstones stored up here, which I have lapped flat using the 3-plate method, although on second thought, it's probably not a great idea to store my whetstones next to the surface plate. I also have some grommets and springs, just some things that I don't use all that often. Below that is the ratchet screwdriver and hand vise that I made last year. I also have a Raspberry Pi and linear coder, which I bought a while back for a gear hobbing attachment which I have in the plans, but I just haven't gotten around to making it just yet. And of course, I also have my surface gauge and dial indicators. The top right drawer has stuff that I'll be reaching for a lot more often, such as my good tap set, my hardness testing files, and my needle files. I also have my parallel set, and I also took the hinges off the box so I can simply lift the cover off. Now these parallels aren't expensive, but a few of them do have some minor dings after 2.5 years of use. So I'll either have to replace them or get the dings ground down sometime soon. The final drawer has all of my mill tooling, which are mostly stored in this tool rack. Nothing too complicated, it's just a plank of wood screwed in with a bunch of nylon inserts. And the nylon inserts were easy enough to make on the lathe. It might be a bit overkill, but I'd rather that these shanks be resting up against nylon than wood. I do have some Morse taper tooling, which I'll probably have to make a holder for, in order to keep it in place. It's too tall for the drawers, so I'll either have to make a cutout from some foam, or I'll 3D print a holder. And that's about it for now. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed the woodworking, even though it's not really my strongest area, but I hope you enjoyed watching it, and with that, thank you very much for watching. See you next week.